First is Jude Curtin-Darling.
Thanks very much, Chair. Thanks, Commissioner. I'd like to start by saying that I really welcome the commitment that you've made as a Commissioner since 2014 to parliamentary scrutiny and to engagement with the Parliament. And I think we've seen quite a lot of progress in terms of parliamentary scrutiny and transparency and increased democracy in EU trade policy. And I think that's positive progress and we need to push it forward. I guess that you're well aware that in the context of the UK referendum, questions about democratic scrutiny and how EU trade policy is developed are right at the centre of some of the myths and, in some cases, lies being spread by the Leave campaign. But I think we need to be absolutely clear, and I would welcome a statement from your side on this, that the EU is accountable to its citizens when it comes to trade policy, and that the EU is acting in the interests of European citizens in its negotiations. And extending the transparency that we've seen around the TTIP and the TISA negotiations to all EU trade negotiations would be one way of putting that into concrete action. So I wonder if that's part of your future planning. One of the other elements in relation to democratic participation and scrutiny has been provisional application of agreements, and we've seen increasingly doubts raised about how upcoming trade agreements will be dealt with in relation to provisional application. Legally, we know our ministers can decide to provisionally apply and implement a trade deal before the European Parliament votes on it. That's something in the treaty. The UK government signed up to that provision. But the Commission's always ensured that Parliament can vote before any kind of provisional application. We asked you the question during your confirmation hearing, and you committed to continue this practice as Commissioner, but now we're hearing doubts quite widely from certain campaigns and from certain sides that CETA or TTIP could be provisionally applied before the European Parliament votes. So I would really welcome a strong commitment today that you will ensure that no EU trade agreement is provisionally applied in any way before the European Parliament has voted on it and it's been ratified in this House. Thank you.
Mrs. Curtin-Darling, yes, I've heard about that referendum in the UK. Yeah, I read about this. And of course, the Commission is not, will not interfere with that. But I think some of the questions or statements that you made, absolutely, I can confirm. As I said, the European trade policy is formulated, of course, by the Commission after very much input by you and the Member States, and no trade agreement is negotiated without unanimous mandate by the Member States and also endorsement by the European Parliament. And as you know, every step we take in every negotiations, we check with you before and after and Member States. So there is this constant monitoring. You have special working groups on some of the negotiations, and of course INTA is here, and we will indeed, and that I committed to in the Trade for All, make sure that we have aiming at the same level of transparency of TTIP negotiations for all negotiations. Publishing the mandate, publishing the EU reports and backgrounds and our proposals as well, to make sure that the public outside the Brussels bubble also can follow this as soon as possible. Many of you mentioned some rumour. I promised, not in this room but in this House, that if there would be an agreement by Member States on a trade agreement, it will not be provisionally applied until the European Parliament has voted. This was true during my hearing, this is true today. So TTIP or CETA, whatever rumours there are, will not be provisionally applied until the Parliament has voted. Then we have the discussion on the mixity. That is a different issue, but the co-legislators are the Member States and the European Parliament, and that will remain so.